So let's talk about what happens when you do not feel as if you are safe to show up at work the way that you really are. In this particular question, we're talking about feeling as if you can't contribute, feeling as if you have things to say, you have ideas to share, but there's just something that is blocking you from getting out there. So this episode might be for my introverts, it might be for people who have just started a new role, it might be for people who are further down the line, but you're still having a similar issue. You want to show them how brilliant you are. You want to be the person that has ideas. You want to speak up and use your voice and really contribute in the way that you know that you can, but something is off, right? I'm Amber J. Adams. This is Q&A Wednesday, where I answer career questions that kind of are in the intersection between career and well-being. I am the founder of Amber Career Studio, where I coach mid-career professionals and help them really feel more comfortable being who they truly are, find new roles and pivot and make changes and shifts, and just basically things that help them to live their best career life that they possibly can. So today's question was floated in front of me as one that was coming from a mid-career professional. This is a person who has been in her job for a little bit of time, so under a year, but she's not within that first 90 days. But what's happening is that she is not feeling as if she can really show up the way that she's been wanting to and the way that she believes that she can. The question is, how can I show up more at work? How can I feel, confident in doing this? How can I shift in order to maybe shift the mindset, shift actions, just make some changes in order to show up the way that I know that I really, really can? So, one of the first things I will say, actually, I'm going to tell you four things. I'm going to frame this and spot out four ways in which I want you to think about this. First, what's happening? Second, how do you feel? Third, where is it coming from? And of course, what can you do? So when I ask you what's happening, what I would want you to do is really think about actually what's happening in this moment. So when you are in a space where you're feeling like, okay, this is the time for me to contribute. This is the time for me to talk, and I'm not saying anything. What's actually happening? Is it that you are at a meeting? Is it a one-on-one? What's the actual scenario in the situation? So I ask this because this is a place for you to gain a deeper awareness and see where are the patterns. It might be that this happens to you when you are in a big meeting where maybe you're looking and seeing who are the players in the room. Maybe it's the CEO, maybe it's your boss, maybe it's some coworkers. Like, what's actually happening? This is a space where if I were coaching this person, I would want them to set the scene for me, because I would want to go deeper into not necessarily the fact that, this person's there, this person's there, but it rolls us into the next question of, okay, we have the scene. How do you feel? What are the feelings that are coming up for you in these moments? So if you're picturing yourself in that meeting room and you're feeling, that block, how do you feel about that? What's happening for you? Obviously, if this were a situation where I was coaching somebody, a lot of other questions will follow because that's how we roll when you coach. But just really on the surface, how do you feel? Prime question. So how do you feel then rolls us into the next thing that you can do, which is, where is this feeling coming from? So this question could be a two-parter. Sometimes when I'm talking with people and they ask, where is this feeling coming from? People might say something that's actually a physical space. Like, it might be, I feel the heaviness in my chest. I feel the anxiousness in my stomach. And it can also be something that is coming from the head, right? So it could be, I feel, where's this feeling coming from? It is coming from a boss that I had a long time ago who told me my ideas weren't good, right? Which sounds awful. And if you're working with somebody that says that, let's talk, because that's not good, right? But where is this feeling coming from? So I experienced this a little earlier in my career, and this wasn't because I was like young and gung ho. I had been in the workspace for quite a chunk of time. So I was in that kind of early to mid career transition, I would say. And I was in a role that, frankly, just the role could have been good for me, but the situation wasn't good for me. So that's why I say what's happening is really looking around at all the things. And so basically, I was working in a situation where it was not a work environment where I felt comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable as Amber. I didn't feel comfortable as Amber, person who is working in this space. It was just not, it was not the move, right? And so I'm typically pretty outspoken. I'm way more outspoken now, of course, than I was back in my late 20s, early 30s. But I did not feel safe in this space. And honestly, it took me years to realize where those feelings were coming from, because a lot of the time, what happens is when we come up against these challenges, we tend to blame ourselves. Now, I'm not saying that there are not things that maybe you could change. There are probably some things that our question asker could change. There were some things that I could have changed in this situation. But there is a difference between gaining an awareness and having that as your first step versus blaming yourself as your first step, right? Big difference between the two. So this was a situation where I didn't realize until way later that there were elements, the what was happening part of it were very off and not in alignment with who I want to be, who I want to show up as. But I blamed myself. And this was a space where, at that time, this was way before coaching was even on my radar. But I can look back and say, I wish that I had been speaking with someone who could help me, especially help me move forward from that piece. Because what I recognize, and one of the things that I work with many clients on, is that these experiences that you may have at other places can then show up when you go to the new spot. So sometimes, we see people who want to quit the job is horrible, but what they don't recognize is that all those feelings and that ickiness and that just, bad juju, the bad vibes, all those things sometimes do come along with you, and you don't always realize that they're there until it's time for you to show up, right? So let's talk about what you can do. First thing, start small. So if you've been, feeling really shy and not confident about showing up, you don't necessarily want to go from totally silent to just blurting out all the things, right? Start small. What are some situations where you can say, okay, I can contribute to this, or maybe it's putting in an idea where there is a smaller group, finding ways in which to start to put yourself out there. And as you are putting yourself out there and you're doing this starting small, you're starting to build up more confidence. And as you start small, then you go medium, then you go larger, right? Second thing you can do is engage an ally. Now, I know not everyone has a friend at work, or work BFF. Shout out to all my work BFFs I've had out over the years. I know everybody doesn't have this, and that's terrible, but I would still give this as a piece of advice, an idea, a tip that maybe you can implement. Is there somebody that you can speak to about this and have them kind of be your hype person, your hype woman, hype man, your hype individual in the room who can, obviously you guys have discussed this before the meeting, but this person might then say, Amber and I were talking about this and she has some really good ideas, Amber, and like gives you that intro and that time. And you might be sitting there like, whoo, I got to get ready. I'm going to jump in. But they're giving you that moment to say, okay, let me go in, let me go small, feeling that support, having that person who is hyping you up and saying, you got this, you can do it. The third thing that I would say you could do, easy peasy thing, journal, right? Journaling about the source of the feeling. That's essentially what you're trying to get to. So when I talk about, my earlier career experience where I was so uncomfortable in this space and it just did not go well, I wish that I had been more in tune with my feelings at the time, because I would have needed some awareness to play around with, meaning that I'm able to really see what's happening around me. I'm able to access those feelings, and then I go deeper with it, because this is a space where you start to discover what is it that is behind this? What is driving this feeling for me right now? And of course, as I always say, you don't have to do this alone or on your own. So where you may pick up with a coach is that, okay, now you've discovered the source, or you work with a coach to discover the source, and then you're like, okay, but I'm ready to move forward. This is the work that coaches do. This is the work that I do. How can we move you forward? How can we get you showing up in the space and showing everybody how amazing and wonderful you truly are? All right. That is what I have for you on Q&A Wednesday. I'm Amber. Tune in again next week. If you have a question, send it my way. I would absolutely love to answer it on air. If you are wanting to know more about career coaching, look below. I have all the information there for you. Set up a discovery call with me. It's 30 minutes. We'll talk about your challenges and we'll see what kind of magic we can create together. All right. Y'all have a good day. Peace.